Hello, everyone. This is a recorded lecture for HRM433 Principles of Human Resource Management. Specifically, this lecture is for Chapter 5, Payment System and Working Hours. Okay, so let's start with the learning objective of this course. So at the end of this chapter, students are expected to be able to explain the different types of payment structures, including basic pay, benefits, and incentives, describe the wage systems currently in use, list and explain the various factors which influence the quantum of wages paid by employers to employees, understand the legal requirement which impact the payment of wages, outline the provisions of the Employment Act 1955 on working hours, explain the reason of having overtime work and its limitation, examined the shift systems of working, and clarify alternatives work schedules such as flexi time, job sharing, and part-time. Okay, so this lecture is divided into 3 parts. So I encourage you to watch the video from part 1 until part 3. We will start with the importance of wage system. Okay, so this is the introductory part of this chapter. Yeah? So in order to attract workers and to retain the best performers, okay, employers need to have a compensation system that will achieve the objectives, their objectives. So employers need to comply with the relevant laws which related to payment system and hours of work. So payment system and quantum of payment plays significant role not only for individual employers but also at the level of society. If wages, okay, received by workers are very low, they will have little money to spend, okay, other than on the basic necessities for survival, okay. And if wages increase rapidly, okay, a wage cost spiral may occur. So what is it? Okay, so when wages increase, employers increase the cost of their products or service to offset okay, the higher wages paid to the employees. So if wages keep on increasing, a country like Malaysia may find it difficult, okay, may find that its export are no longer competitive in the world's market. And so it would be a major barriers to further economic growth. Again, at the same time, the current government is trying to turn Malaysia into high-income nation in which economic development is enjoyed by all sectors of the population. So one of the many measures introduced to achieve the objective is the minimum wage. So we will discuss about it, okay, in the later section of this chapter. All right. So wage and payment system. So the PowerPoint slide provides a diagram that is taken from page 178, figure 5.1. So it is basically reflecting to the concept of the remuneration. So in return for employees' work, okay, so employees are paid, okay, paid agreed amount of remuneration. Yes? So typically, employers also provide some payments to motivate workers to maximize their output. So remuneration or compensation package, okay, consists of these elements: wages, benefits, and incentives. So the variety of possible system is wide. So employers not only have to decide the quantum or total amount of wages to offer to employees, but they also have to determine whether to offer any incentives, and if so, what form they should take. So decision about this remuneration package, okay, also to be made, okay, concerning the types of benefits and quantum of benefits offered. Okay, however, it is not always the employer alone, okay, who decides on the compensation system and structure of the company payment system may also be influenced by external parties such as trade union, okay, through negotiations and through government intervention. So all employers are required to make two major decisions, okay, which will affect the success of the enterprise. Okay, they must choose a wage system for implementation, and they must decide on wage levels or quantum of wages they will offer to employees. Okay, which system is chosen and what wage levels are offered are basically will depend on the organization's objective. So primarily, the primarily the goals of a wage, the goals of a wage system is basically to attract employees to work in organization, okay, and also to retain efficient employees. Additionally, okay, good wage system, okay, will motivate employees to perform efficiently and establish simple system that is easy to administer. When choosing a wage or payment system, so employer must keep in mind that certain factors are considered important by potential workers. So employees want the highest financial package as possible, but they also want stability of income so they can plan their personal finances. Now we go to the wage system. So there are two major systems of payment. The first one is time-related system. The second one is the piece-rated system. There are also wage system that consists of combination of these two. Okay, so we will go one by one. As PowerPoint slide only provide this information. So the additional information must be read from the textbook. Okay, for time-related system, so this type of system, okay, whereby wages are paid for a set period of work on an hourly, weekly, or monthly basis. Okay, so the pay varies with the number of hours worked and not with the output. Okay, so time-related systems are probably the most widely used simply because they are easy to understand and administer, and the worker is assured of a steady income. Okay, so time-related system, okay, is most suitable when there is no direct relationship between productivity, okay, with productivity and an individual performance. Okay, so while white collar, clerical, and managerial jobs have traditionally used this system as the mode of payment. So this system is used whenever the output of a job cannot be quantified easily. So the time period used as the basis for payment may range from hourly to annually. Okay, so the textbook also provide information about this. It says in plantations and manufacturing, it has been a norm for many years to pay most workers based on daily rates. Office workers, however, are more likely to receive monthly rated pay. Say, on the other hand, daily rated payment is decreasing in popularity because the workers find the system prejudicial to their interests. All right, so the chief advantage of time-related system is that there is no relationship between effort and reward. There is no incentive for the employee to work efficiently and effectively. A worker who put maximum effort, okay, into his or her work will receive exactly the same pay as the one who does as little as possible. Therefore, to ensure workers put in the best effort, control system will be necessary. Okay, it also strongly advisable to build into the system an adequate reward system. Okay, so the next wage system is called piece rated system, piece work system, or payment by result. Yeah. So in this system, workers are paid according to the number of units produced in a given time. Okay, so the most common example in the straight face rate system, okay, pays a certain amount for each item produced. Okay, in a differential rate system, okay, to encourage workers to produce a maximum level, progressively higher rates may be paid for higher level of output. Okay, so most modern day payment by result system provide a base, okay, a base or minimum salary. Say on top of that, the worker receive an agreed amount for every item produced or products sold. Okay, so this payment system, payment by result of piecework, is basically most successful when the job has a short learning cycle. So it means the job is easy to learn. The worker has control over the pace of the work and effort they put in. Okay, so it means the job is not machine controlled. And also, this type of job, okay, is most successful when there are no breaks or stoppages in the production. So so when a piecework, okay, system is used, the role of management is not to exhort workers to greater effort or to exercise close control over their work. Okay, under such system, okay, it is assumed that workers will be self-motivated. Workers will put in their best effort in order to increase their pay packet. Yeah? So management function, okay, is to establish a working system where smooth output by operators, okay, is possible. So management must take steps to avoid stoppages, okay, which will basically or negatively affect workers' earning. So managers must also ensure the raw materials are in adequate supply. Machines are well maintained, and if possible, power supply is uninterrupted. Yeah? So the piecework also reported to have quite a number of problems. Okay, so these problems were described in the textbook. The first problem, okay, that workers do not always attempt to maximize their earning. Social norms might include where an individual may desire to work as fast as possible in order to earn money, and he may find, okay, and output restriction norms is being enforced by his or her co-workers. If he exceeds the limit, he puts himself in danger of being boycotted by his colleagues. The second problem or disadvantage of this system is that the quality of output may be affected. It is because of the eagerness of the workers to increase the output, so workers may sacrifice quality. So inspection costs will thus overweight any economic benefits of this system. So excessive speed could also lead to an increase in accident cases. The piece-rated system can cause significant friction between the workers and the management. Most of schemes use work study to establish the rates to be paid. So if the rates are too low, workers will have to strain to achieve reasonable level of income. If they are too high, okay, there is no motivation for the worker to put forward his best effort. Also, okay, issues related with this piece work is the situation or scenario where workers tend to strongly resist any new procedures, equipment, or changes which may lead to a loss of income while they are adjusting. Okay. Anyway, the main industries, okay, which still use payment by result, okay, or this piecework, okay, system might include the plantation industry and certain manufacturing operations, especially those with largely a manual job. Okay, so a variation on the piece rates is found in the transport industry, whereby lorry and long distance bus drivers are paid by the trip. Okay, so another example also provided here is um, the salesman. So basically, this focus on the piece rate, how much the amount they sold in the products or services they provided. Talking about the transport industry, specifically on the drivers, yeah. So employees basically when the employers use this system on this transport industry. So basically, this can cause employees um, to um, or encourage them to drive faster than permitted. Okay, take shortcuts through places unsuitable. Okay, and also lead them to insufficient rest breaks. Okay, and they're becoming more fatigued, and all of which this in turn can cause accidents. All right, so let's talk about factors affecting levels of pay. Okay, so deciding on how much to pay employees, okay, is a key human resource decisions. So, because we need to understand that underpaying causes turnover to skyrocket, okay, while overpaying result in little motivation to improve, okay, and advance. So, basically, okay, mechanism exists, okay, mechanism that might affect, okay, level of pay exists. So these include legislations, existence of or otherwise of union representing the workers concerned, selection policy of employers, and also employment condition and company profitability. So we will go one by one of these factors. Okay, focusing on the factors affecting level of pay at the industrial level. And later we will talk about the factors affecting individual level of pay. Right. So, talking the first, factors, of affecting the level of pay, legislation and government policy might be very important. Government, everywhere are concerned about how much employers pay their employees. They may wish to prevent exploitations of workers, and for this purpose, will ensure a minimum wage is legislated. Okay, so in the context of Malaysia, in 2013, for the first time, Malaysia implemented a minimum wage under the National Wage Consultative Council Act 2011. So under the act, a minimum wage was announced in 2012, and then made effective in 2013, and has increased several times since then. So the Employment Act 1955 also provide provisions on certain aspects of wage payments, which will be later discussed again in the later part of this lecture. So the government may also want to discourage employers from increasing wages too fast, as this may affect the competitiveness of country's economy. Say wage control is not usually achieved through legislation, but more often by policy statements and other means. Most countries find wage controls difficult to implement effectively. This suffice to say, wage control has never been featured prominently in Malaysian government policies. So another factor, that might affect the level of pay is the unions. So wages can be usually set unilaterally, so by the employer alone, or by laterally, that might include the involvement of trade unions. So in that, so the involvement of trade unions, when negotiating the pay will usually be called bargaining process. So this will be explained further in chapter 8. So a strong union with a skill, a strong union with skill in negotiating may be able to push wage and benefits level up to a higher point, than the employer would pay if the union were not involved. At the same time, it is also true that some employers will pay higher than average wage, with the objectives of keeping their workers contented and not interested in joining the union. The very existence of union affects wage levels whether or not the workers belong to a union. So the textbook provides statistics. It says less than 8% of Malaysian workforce belong to a trade union, and overall influence of union on pushing up wages is minimal. Although in certain industries, union may play a major role in determining how much employees are paid. Another factors that influence the pay, would be the selection policy. The selection policy. So high wages, will attract better workers when the organization has job vacancies. So a company offering wages higher than normal wages can hope to attract more qualified workers. However, the relationship between productivity and high wages is tenuous. And so high wages do not guarantee highly motivated workers. So the next condition is the employment condition. So basically, if the labor market is tight, meaning there is a general shortage of workers, organizations compete for a limited supply of labor. So individual employees usually have no option but to offer competitive wages in order to attract potential employees. Conversely, if okay, if the labor market is loose, okay, where there is a plentiful supply of workers, okay, an employee may be able to get workers even when he pays relatively low wages. Okay? So, talking about the shortages in certain sectors such as construction, plantation, and manufacturing, whereby the need for the low skill service workers prevalent, employers have been able to keep wages on low side by employing foreign workers from Asian countries where unemployment level are still high. Okay, so many economies would like to see foreign workers phased out entirely or at least the number reduced significantly. Okay, to do this would require a major upgrade in automation and mechanization of jobs which are still carried out manually. So the issue of employers being over-dependent on foreign workers has become a perennial one with no end in sight. Okay, so organizations still in the employment organization and employment condition. So organization have to pay a wage high enough to attract workers. So this is a fact, but not so high as it incur unnecessarily a high labor cost. So how to do that? So usually employers will need to take steps to find out the going rate or the rates of pay both in other companies in the vicinity and other companies in the same industry. So wage surveys can be carried out by the company itself or by information that can be bought from organizations such as Malaysian Employees Federation or from consultants who, for a fee, will conduct tailor-made survey for a client. Okay, so when organizations ensure that wages they pay are comparable to other employers in the locality or in the industry, they are making certain that employees will perceive their wages as equitable and fair. Okay, so when workers compare their salaries to those paid, okay, to employees in other companies, they are interested in the external equity. Okay, next factor, okay, concerns about the company profitability. Okay, when an organization may wish to pay high level of wages in order to attract good workers, and perhaps because it recognizes, okay, the motivating factor in reasonable level of wages, okay, its ability to pay become a limiting factor. The profit levels of company will determine how much money is available for wages and other benefits. Of course, okay, not all companies' profits okay, are distributed to workers. Some of the profits must be retained so the company could invest its finance for expansions or purchase of equipment or machinery. Okay, some of the profits must also be given to the shareholders and some set aside to pay taxes. Thus, financial decisions relating to payment to shareholders, workers, and investment profits are very subjective. All right, so the next discussion is about factors affecting individual level of pay. So, So just now, or the discussion we are basically talking, okay, so basically reflecting to the external equity, so external equity. So factors affecting individual levels of pay are basically concerning internal equity. Okay, so so what factors affect individual levels of pay? Okay, so these factors include seniority, okay, increase in cost of living, performance, and degree of skills and experience. Okay, so we will go through this one by one. All right. So to encourage workers to be loyal to the organization and to stay with the same employer, okay, um, the pay structure may be organized so that wage levels rises with the number of years of service the worker has. The longer he stays with the company, the more his pay increases until he reaches a predetermined ceiling or maximum. All right. So thus, workers are given an annual increment, which partly compensates them for any increase in the cost of living, but also reward long service. So this is a common practice. Um, this is a common practice, and also the company often give annual increment. Okay, but this practice has been criticized as it leads to an increase in organizations' wage bill without any corresponding increase in productivity. Okay, so the next factor for the individual, for this individual employees' wage related to the increase in the cost of living. So basically, what determines how do we know there is an increase in the cost of living? Okay, statistics available such as Consumer Price Index, okay, issued by the Department of Statistics, okay, in the Prime Minister's Department, that might be used to see the pattern, okay, to the increase in the cost of basic goods that can be used as a guideline, okay, to employers who wish to provide employees with increment when the cost of living has risen. So when the basic salary is increased, okay, many other payments which are calculated based on basic salary will also increase. For this reason, okay, when the cost of living rises rapidly, some employers do not increase the wages, but they give their employees a cost of living allowance. So this is called COLA, a cost of living allowance. Sometimes this is called subsistence allowance, subsistence allowance. Okay, so the next factor is called performance. Individual wage is also affected by the competence, okay, efficiency and performance level. Workers who are identified as outstanding or have the outstanding performance may receive special merit increment or bonuses. Okay, in some situation, it is more practical to provide bonuses to a group of workers, especially where okay, it is not possible to distinguish the results of individual performance. Okay, so basically this is a form of the pay for performance schemes. Okay, it requires effective and fair performance appraisal system. The next factor is degree of skills. Okay, so the biggest difference in individual wage is caused by the universally held belief that workers should be paid according to the skills level required by their job. Okay, the higher the skill needed, the more the worker will be paid. Okay, so an issue of concern to many governmental and non-governmental organizations is basically equality of pay for men and women, although this has never been a major problem in Malaysia. Although there is no specific legislation mandating equal pay for equal work, okay, there is no strong evidence that suggests women are paid less than men where they are hired for the same job. Okay, so Malaysian does, however, have a large gap between the incomes of men and women when taken in the aggregate. Using aggregated data, we could see the large gap. So surveys conducted by Department of Statistics in 2020 again found that male employers receive a mean monthly salary of 2,963 compared to 2,889 received by female employees. Also, okay, significant gap, okay, are also evident when the median salary is examined. All right. Now let's go to 5.3, legislation relevance to payment of wages or relevance to remuneration. Yeah? So in Malaysia, so the Employment Act, along with the labor ordinances of Sabah and Sarawak, okay, are very much relevant in determining the payment of wage. And most recently, the National Wages Consultative Council Act. So these laws given certain rights and protections to employees who are within this scope. So protection of wage is a major concern of these laws. However, not all employees are within the scope of these key laws and regulate payment of wages. Okay, so Employment Act, the Sabah and Sarawak Labor Ordinances. So the coverage will be described, okay, in the corresponding slide. Yeah? So I will extract, okay, I will extract the information provided in the textbook, okay, along, okay, by looking at the slides here. All right. So the legislation that I mentioned, okay, just now, and so the Employment Act, okay, Sabah and Sarawak level ordinances, okay, provides information regarding to this, the frequency of wage payment. So talking about the frequency, so according to these laws and these acts, okay, our wage period, okay, may not be longer than 1 month. Workers can of course be paid more frequently, okay, for instance fortnightly, okay, weekly, or even daily. Okay, so the majority of workers in Malaysia are paid wages monthly. Okay, yet in other Commonwealth countries, okay, it's common, okay, the workers to be paid on weekly basis. Okay, why is it? Because some workers find it difficult to budget for a full month. Okay, a few companies are now paying wages twice a month. So wages must be paid no later than 7 days after the last day of the wage period, and a written statement showing the total wage earned and any deduction made must be given to worker. Okay, so how about the mode of payment? So mode of payment is basically reflecting to the the methods of payment made. Yeah? So wages must be paid into an employee's bank account. So other methods of payment such as check or cash are permissible. Okay, provided the employee makes a written request. Okay. Um, Today, the huge majority of employers pay wages directly into the into the employee's bank account. Is far safer and more efficient method of payment than payment by cash or check. Although this type of payments also permissible. Advances on wages. Okay, so the act provides information, a little bit information about the advances. So it says the employment law allows employers to give an advance of wages to employers, but the advance may not exceed 1 month pay, except where the employer advances the employee money to buy house, land, a computer, a vehicle, shared in the employee's business, or pay for medical expenses or educational fees, in which case there is no limit on amount which may be advanced to the employee. Okay, so the amount is at the discretion of the employer. Other advances require the express permission of the Director General of Labor. All right. So what about the deductions? Okay, so the textbook provide several important information about deductions. So deductions are allowed on certain conditions. Okay, so the first one on the written request of the employee for the purpose of payment of trade union, payment to trade union, payment to a cooperative society, payment for the purpose of shares sold by the employer to employees. So, okay, that's the first condition that only require written request of the employee. Okay, so second condition, deduction could be performed with written request of the employee with the written approval of the Director General of Labor. So what are the purposes? For what purposes? Payment to a superannuation, welfare, or thrift scheme. Okay, payment to third parties. Okay, repayment of advances of wages, okay, granted by the employer to the employee when interest is levied, cost of accommodation, food or services supplied to the employee by the employer, and any other payment which the Director General is satisfied is for the benefits of the worker. Okay, so for the type of payment that I described just now, it requires written request of employee with the written approval from the Director General of Labor. Okay, so another type of deduction that requires no, that does not require request or consent of the employee. Okay, the purpose for the following reason. The first is deductions authorized by any laws. Example would be the EPF deduction, SOXO deduction, and the employment insurance scheme. Okay, so the other type that does not require consent, from the employee is deduction of any payment of wages made by mistake to the employee during the preceding 3 months. Okay, and another situation is the deduction of any indemnity due to employer by the employee. Okay, and the last one, deduction of an advance or wages where no interest is levied. Okay, so if the interest is levied, then written approval of the Director General Labor is needed, and also the written request, from the employee. All right. So we talk about deductions. Now we talk about situations when wages are not required to be paid. Okay, so wages are not required to be paid. Situation when wages are not required to be paid. Okay, the textbook specifically did not mention about wages did not required to be paid, but there is an interesting information provided in the textbook about the Employment Act. Okay, stipulates the wages cannot be paid out to employees in taverns or pub, in places of amusement, or in retail shops, unless, of course, the employees concerned work in such places. Okay, so these are the background of this act. Okay, it's basically dated back in 19th century England, where employers commonly made a deal with local pub keepers to pay the workers in the pub itself. Okay, as a result, not all of workers pay reach their families. So these are the situations. So wages are not payable, okay, if an employee is unable to work because he is in a police custody, okay, in prisons or attending court, unless the court attendance is on the employer's behalf. Okay, what happened if the company failed to pay the wage? Failure to pay wages within the time limit set by the Employment Act can be considered breach of contract by the employer. All right, so those are information extracted from the acts and relevant acts. So the next is about the minimum wage. Yeah. So minimum wage, these are basically relevant to the National Wages Consultative Council Act 2011. Okay, prior 2013, okay, there is no minimum wage imposed by law, okay, except in certain industries where wages councils existed. So these councils were committees appointed by the Ministry of Human Resources to investigate the wages paid in certain sectors. So what are the sectors? So the wage council exists for shop assistants, hotels, catering industry workers, okay, stevedores, okay, cargo handlers in Port of Penang, and cinema workers. Okay, but now, okay, um there is a specific act, okay, governing the minimum wage. So in the first few years after 2013, the minimum wage, okay, agreed by authorities applied to all employers and the employees, okay, throughout Peninsular Malaysia. Okay, um, okay, previously, okay, in 2010, in 2010, the wage, okay, will be sorry, the minimum wage, okay, the minimum wage announced, okay, in the beginning, starting January 2013, okay, the minimum wage throughout Peninsular Malaysia was 900, okay, per month, while Sabah Sarawak was 800, but the amount was raised, okay, in 2016 and again 2020. So now, okay, it's 1,500 to 1,800. So anyway, So this act requires the minimum wage to be reviewed every 2 years, every 2 years. This does not mean that there must be an increase in the minimum wage for every 2 years, only that the committee responsible to recommend minimum wage must conduct an investigation into whether there is a need to raise the minimum wage at that time. So the minimum wage is based on the basic wage and does not include other cash payments and allowances made to workers. Although employers and the associate has expressed dissatisfaction with having to pay a minimum wage, it may be said that the introduction of the minimum wage was a game changer for the Malaysian economy. So several questions basically are still unanswered, And these questions provided in the PowerPoint slide, So is the minimum wage currently set by the government at the right amount? Should the minimum wage be the same for all workers throughout the country, or should it vary according to region or locations of an organization or other factors such as size of the employer? How often should the minimum wage be changed, and what will the impact on employers be? Okay, so there is no basically specific answer to this question, but some economists argues that the minimum wage will force employers to think their business processes to find ways to produce the same level of service or the same amount of products with less human input. So this is beneficial for Malaysia's economy, which has full employment and relies on foreign labors, to do many jobs rejected by locals. So with more automations, and mechanizations, so less labor, employers would be able to raise wages for all their workers, which in turn push Malaysia into a higher level economy. All right. So to ensure employers adhere to the requirement of the minimum wage, orders, the enforcement officers from the Department of Labor inspect companies for non-compliance. So a fine will be paid, by the employer for each employee who does not receive the minimum wage, can be imposed, by the court. So there are cases mentioned in the textbook. However, only basically one case, has been sensationalized, in the popular media. However, according to the annual report of the Department of Labor, Ministry of Human Resources for 2020, states that 452 complaints of failure to pay minimum wages was settled at the level court, and further 58 cases led to prosecutions. In these 58 cases, a total of 99,200 had to be paid in fines by the employers concerned. All right, so that's the end of the part 1 of this lecture. We will continue with part 2 shortly. All right, let's continue with the second part of the lecture. Right. The purpose of this section of this chapter is to examine various methods of an employer can use to organize the working hours, in his enterprise. So the employer has the right to decide upon the system of working hours in his organization. So, like many other rights in the field of employment, this is not absolute. The government, in its role as watchdog or protector of workers, has passed legislation to parliaments which is intended to prevent exploitation of workers. Specifically, the maximum working hours as laid down on the Employment Act and the Sabah and Sarawak Labor Ordinances, okay, which states that no employee shall be required under his contract to work more than 8 hours per day or more than 45 hours per week. Okay, so this has been lowered down from 48 hours in 2022 or more than 10 hours per day when spread over period is involved, and no more than 5 consecutive hours without a 30-minute break. Okay, so the only exception to this is if if employee is required to work less than one day, such as on a half day. So he can thus be required to work longer on other days, but no longer than 9 hours per day. All right. So employees within the scope of the Employment Act and Sabah Sarawak Ordinance, Sabah and Sarawak Labor Ordinance are also entitled for rest days. Okay, so the decision as to which day, okay, so basically, all acts, okay, stipulates that all workers are entitled to at least one rest day per week. The decision on which day shall be rest day for any worker lies with the employer. Okay, so it does not have to be Sunday. However, if the rest day is variable, okay, for example, in a shift system, the management must inform workers in advance as to the roster in operation. So workers who are required to work on rest day and who agree to the employer's appeal are entitled to premium rates of pay to offset the loss of day of rest. So, talking about public holidays, okay, workers covered by the Employment Act must be granted at least 11 public holidays per year. Okay, so of of the 16, okay, so gazetted public holidays, okay, so 11, okay, must be granted. Okay, 5 must be given to all workers: National Day, Malaysia Day, Agung birthday, and relevant state sultans or governors birthday and Labor Day. Okay, the employer may choose which other 6 holidays are to be granted to his workers. So employees may be required to work, okay, on one or all of their public holidays, in which cases, as with work on the rest day, so special premium rates will apply. All right, so misunderstanding frequently arises, okay, over non-gazetted public holidays. Okay, so this might be announced on occasions, okay, such as a holiday or celebrate some special one-off occasions. Example provided in the textbook is the end of the successful organization of the Southeast Asian Games. 2017. So a one-day holiday was declared in recognition of the hard work put in by many people involved, including the hundreds of volunteers assistants. Okay, so such spontaneous holidays are usually not gazetted. Okay, so they are not published in the government's official publication or public notices, and therefore private sector workers are not entitled to the holiday. It is up to the discretion of the employer whether to grant the holiday or not. All right. So before we go to 5.5.1 about the overtime work, okay, so the textbook provides several factors, okay, to be taken into consideration when choosing a system, okay, of working hours. So basically, these are the considerations to be taken care, okay, to be taken into considerations: the legal constraints, the effect on the efficiency of the workers of a particular system, the effect on the motivation of the workers, the type of system being used by majority of employers in comparable organization and in the same locality. Okay, so more recently, employers have been experimenting with variety of patterns known as alternative work schedules, AWS. So this is designed to increase the motivation of workers. So this will include work sharing, okay, flexi time system, part-time shifts, and compressed work hours. So we will talk about it a little bit after we talk about the concept of overtime work and also the shift, work shift. All right. So now we go to the overtime working. So what is overtime working? So Employment Act stipulates, okay, that no worker can be required by his employer to work more than 8 hours per day or 45 hours per week. The only situation which can be considered exceptionals are laid down in the Act, okay, which says that working longer hour than normal can be requirement in the case of accident, actual or threatened, in or with respect to employer's place of work, the performance of which is essential to the life of the community, work essential for the defense of security of Malaysia, urgent work to be done to machinery or plant, an interruption of work which was impossible to foresee, and work to be performed by employees in an industrial undertaking essential to the economy of Malaysia, and any essential services as defined in the Industrial Relations Act 1967. So what are these essential services? So basically these include, okay, the transport and banking industries, telecommunications, electricity supply, public health, petroleum and gas industries, and others. Okay, should a worker agree to work longer than the normal hours at the request of the employer, okay, he may do so, but with a limit. So which is presently 104 hours per month. All right. So basically, the act, okay, uh, the overtime rates set by the Employment Act as follows. The overtime work on an ordinary working day, so will be 1.5 times the normal hourly rate. Overtime work on a rest day, so 2 times the normal hourly rate. And overtime work on public holiday, okay, will be 3 times the normal hourly rate. Okay, so the textbook provides several reasons why the organization or the employer asks his employees to work longer hours than normal. Okay, so taking overtime. So four reasons why overtime may be necessary. The first one is a temporary shortage of manpower. Second reason is a temporary increase in workload. The third reason, low productivity of the workers. And the fourth one, difficulty in recruiting additional workers. Okay, so also mentioned in the textbook, okay, it may happen from time to time that abnormally large number of employees are absent and likely to be away for an extended but definable period of time. Perhaps there is an epidemic rendering many workers unfit for work, or unusually large number of workers are on maternity leave. Okay, during certain times of the year, particularly around the times of religious festivals, workers will request annual leaves. Okay, so it also happened that an individual worker could be absent, and the nature of his work is such that somebody must be found to replace him. Okay, for instance, the security guard fails to report for a duty and a substitute must be found. Yeah? So it is expensive to keep the pool of workers just in case of absenteeism. Okay, therefore, a security guard about to go off duty may be requested to stay on for a further 4 hours to cover the absent employee. Okay, so in some industries, workers may not be evenly spread out through the year. Retail stores, okay, especially in large department stores, tend to have a rush business just before religious holidays or during sale period. So in order to accommodate the extra trade, many stores will open their doors for longer period per day. Okay, so another example is taken from a country with a temperate climate where fruit growing, okay, is a distinctly seasonal activity. And so when the fruit is ripe and ready for picking, it must be harvested quickly in order to guarantee quality. So thus the employees will be expected to work long hours per day to ensure the crop is brought in as rapidly as possible. Okay, and so another reason in a situation, a company may want to work an extra hour in order to complete a special order for an important customer. So the other reason is working overtime related to the worker productivity, low productivity. Okay, three possible causes of this low productivity: an experienced, untrained workforce, frequent stoppages of work due to machinery or electricity breakdown, or phenomenon of workers purposely slacking during normal working hours, okay, so as to have the opportunity of doing overtime. Okay, it is also possible that overtime is seen by workers as a legitimate method of increasing their earnings. So in a situation like now, so in a tight labor market, so employees might find it difficult to recruit sufficient workers for their needs. When demand for the company's product or service is high, the employer may request his employees to work overtime so that he can increase production to meet the demand of his output. One of the reasons put forward by Malaysian employers for hiring foreign laborers is that local workers are very reluctant to work overtime, whereas foreigners are eager to earn extra income. All right. So the disadvantages of the overtime workers provided in the textbook. Okay, but it is further elaborated in page 195 of the textbook. Okay, so several disadvantages or basically problems caused by the excessive overtime, provided in the textbook. The first is increased costs. Overtime rates, of pay are higher than the normal rates. So this fact alone should discourage employers from allowing too much overtime. Okay, and also, when the organization open for longer hours, it will be it is also expected that the utility costs, such as electricity, will increase. So, of course, both the costs may be offset by the increased production. Okay, the second problem is related to the employees' morale. So, although it has been suggested that many workers welcome the chance to increase their earnings through overtime, these might not apply to everyone. Okay, there are those who resent overtime work because it may cause difficulties in their personal life. Okay, those who have family commitment or are involved in sports or other such activities will not be very keen to do overtime. The distribution of overtime may also cause problems, if workers perceive inequities in the opportunities to do overtime, they may become disillusioned, very disillusioned. So workers who like to do overtime but are denied the opportunity by the supervisor because they are not his favorite are very likely to complain about the system. And the next problem is related to the productivity, specifically lower productivity. Okay, logic would suggest that longer working hours could lead to reduced productivity. For the reasoning behind this assertion is that lengthy working hours lead to increased fatigue, which in turn result in uh, more mistakes, more accidents, slower speed of work, and thus reduce productivity. And the last one is related to the effects on employees' health. Okay, studies, has been published studies suggest that working regular overtime hours, may cause various health problems, including depressions. So reports has been published regarding this study, a prominent study conducted by British Medical Research Council identified that those who normally work longer than normal hours were at risk of major depressive disorder or depressive episodes. So also scientists now found there is a strong link between the longer working hours, um, that are longer than traditional 8 hours had a 40% to 80% greater chance of developing heart disease. All right. Okay, so that's the end of the part two of the of this lecture. We will continue with part 3 that focus on the shift, the shift work system. All right, in the previous section, discuss the common patterns of workers working a normal 8 hours per day, with the occasional requirement of extra hours, at the end of the working day. So many industries, however, need or prefer shift work. So what is basically shift work? So shift work, is a complex. It's not easy to define. Possibly the difficulty lies in the fact that there exists a wide variety of types and patterns of shift work. Trying to find common denominators is not a simple task. But basically, the shift works involves hours of work, which include hours outside the normal or traditional 8 to 4 or 9 to 5 pattern, or two or more groups of workers who take turn to man the workstation. So basically, the easiest way to clarify the concept is to examine the most common pattern of work shift. So these are the types of pattern of work shift. Double a day. Double day shifts, refers to a situation when the employer finds when the employer, sorry, when these organization when the time is organized, working 16 hours per day. So a day would be defined as 24 hours beginning at any point of time. So each group of workers will only be required to work 8 hours. So this is not a particular popular pattern of shift work. So the most popular starting and finishing time for double day shift would be shift 1, 7 a.m. to 3 p.m. and shift 2, 3 p.m. to 11 p.m. So a variation on the normal form of double day shift is the 12-hour shift in which system the employees work 12 hours per day. So basically, the system will not contravene the Employment Act, providing the workers work no more than average 48 hours over a 3-week period. Example is provided in the textbook. In week 1, an employee will work 72 hours, work or 6 days, multiplied by 12 hours, and week 2, 72 hours work. But in week 3, the person will not be working, so off day for the whole week. The next shift, and the next type of shift is called 3-shift work. So many organizations prefer this type of work. Especially those prefer to for economic reason to work around the clock. So some industries have no choice. But to offer 24-hour service. Therefore, this triple shift system, can be either continuous. Continuous means, the organization is operating non-stop and only closes for annual maintenance, or semi-continuous, where the company only work 5 or 6 days per week. So a range of possible starting and stopping times are used in this three shift system. But the most common would be the one presented in the textbook, page 200. Shift 1, okay, starts okay from 7 a.m. to 3 p.m. and then the shift 2 from 3 p.m. to 11 p.m. and shift 3 from 11 p.m. to 7 a.m. Okay, so the different shift may be termed first, second, and third. Okay, or they may be known as the morning shift, afternoon shift, and night shift. Okay, so the night shift, okay, is often called midnight shift or graveyard shift. So, so a great deal of research works has been focused on studying the effect of or midnight shift on the health of workers. So the next type of shift work system is called the split shift. So the split shift commonly found in the hotel and food for, and beverages business. Okay, so this involves working several hours early in the morning, having time off, and then continuing the same shift later in the day. So the hospitality industry use this system widely because of the local cultures of expecting food outlets to be open from early in the morning until late at night. Okay, so split shift are used because the employers need for workers at certain peak periods of the day. So it is only practical if the worker is provided with the accommodation at the work site. Anyway, the Employment Act requires that the working day in this system should not be longer than 10 hours, although employer could apply for exemption for these rulings. Okay, so the next type of this shift work system is called rotating and permanent shift. Okay, so basically, so for this rotating shift system, okay, an individual worker, okay, if he is on a double day system, alternates between the first and the second shift on regular basis, usually weekly. Okay, so if the worker is in a continuous shift system, he will rotate regularly between the three shifts. So the purpose of rotating shift is to ensure that all workers share equally the more unpopular working hours, especially the night shift. Okay, however, some employers may believe that the problem of workers having to adapt to constantly changing working hours may outweigh the equity aspects. Okay, thus they prefer to have system whereby workers choose a particular shift and permanently work on that shift. So in setting up shift roster, an employer must take care to comply with the requirement of the Employment Act, which states that shift workers' weekly rest must not be less than 30 hours. All right. So the textbook provides justification for shift works. Okay, several justification. The first one is in service-oriented industry, there exist subsectors which have no choice but to work shift because of the nature of the service offered. So workers who join this profession know that shift work is, in most cases, inevitable. Okay, examples a job related in public health, security, police work, and hotel industry. Second would be the nature of some production technologies where the machinery need to be run continuously without a break. Okay, and because This is because the long startup times required for such equipment. So most heavy industry, including paper manufacturing, chemicals, and steel, uh, falls into this category. The third reason, okay, why shift work is needed is because of the method, okay, to maximize the productive use of plant and machinery. Okay, so workers may complain if required to work long hours, but machines do not. Okay, therefore, when there is a sustained high demand for an organization's output, okay, it may be possible to increase productivity and therefore profits by having shift work. Okay, the fourth reason, okay, why shift work might be needed is because of the consumer services. People want the convenience of being able to shop, eat out, or go to the movie at any time of the day or night. So in sectors such as banking industry, okay, 24-hour service can be offered through extensive use of automation with ATMs and online banking. However, those work in the call centers, okay, responding to the customer queries, okay, in and perform other services often work shift. Yeah? So in other consumer service, personal service is still the norm. So more and more workers are required to work shift. All right. So continue with this. Yes, several problems might be caused with this one, yeah, with the shift. But basically, this problem caused by shift work are basically answering this the questions posted here. Does shift work cause how problem are shift workers are productive as non-shift workers, and what are the costs of the shift work? So basically, we could extract the information from the textbook in order for us to answer these questions. So the textbook provides several points, okay, of the problems caused by shift work. Okay, so the first one is women and night work. Okay, previously there was a legal constraint on women working at night. Okay, because in the Employment Act it mentions no female employee shall work in any industrial or agricultural undertaking between the hour of 10 o'clock in the evening and 5 o'clock in the morning. Nevertheless, okay, the clause in the act did not cause problems as there is a remedial passage provided under this act that says, okay, providing that the Director General may, on application made to him in any particular case, exempt in writing any female employees or class of female employees from any restriction in the subsection subject to any condition, okay, he may impose. Okay, prior to 2022, the Department of Labor exempted all employees from this restriction but imposed the following conditions. All workers involved must be paid a shift allowance to compensate them from any negative aspects faced in night working, and free transport must be provided to and from the place of work to ensure the safety of the workers. Okay, so anyway, there should also be opportunity for rotations of shift. Okay, so the section of Act was deleted in 2022 as it is considered to be discriminatory. Okay, so another problems caused by the shift work is related to increased costs. Increased costs in many industries, employers choose to have shift work system so as to increase their profits. Okay, they can maximize the use of expensive machinery and plant space by getting workers to work in shifts. Okay, so there exists a wide variations in the amount of shift allowance to be paid. Okay, some organizations pay out a flat rate per month. Okay, some organizations choose to pay out varying amounts depending on the shift work. Regardless, the Department of Labor recommends an allowance of 15% of basic wage for the second shift and 25% for the third shift. Next is workers' health and shift work. Okay, whether or not shift work is detrimental to workers' health is a controversial issue. There are a growing number of studies which shows that shift work, especially rotating shift, lead to health problems. Okay, so basically, published evidence suggests, okay, there are two major health hazards associated with shift work. The first one is sleeping difficulties. The second is changes in eating habits leading to gastrointestinal disorders, okay, such as ulcers. So studies conducted locally, okay, in Malaysia found that there was a significant association between involvement in shift work and being overweight. Okay, so the study involving female factory workers, the women in the study had poor health, particularly because they had irregular meals. However, the premise of shift workers' health being significantly worse than that of non-shift worker has not been clearly established. Another study that basically conducted by French researcher found that long-term working in shift may lead to loss of memory and brain power. Okay, according to a longitudinal study over 10 hours, 10 years observation period. And also, this study found that there is strong association between shift work and chronic cognitive impairment. Okay, other studies found disturbing problems related to shift work with higher risk of getting diabetes. Okay, possibly because of the sleep disturbances which result from the type of shift which affect the ability of the employee body to produce insulin. Okay, lung cancer and cardiovascular disease were also linked to the shift work. And then the last, problems, the final problems, caused by this shift work is related to the stress and psychological problem. So physical difficulties can themselves lead to workers being depressed and irritable. So workers on shift often have double problems, of trying to adjust the biological clock, to our rotating system of work hours and night work combined, with families and social stress. Okay, so some workers may resent shift work because the opportunities to participate in sporting, religious, and political activities, these their involvement are seriously curtailed. Okay, whether or not problems apply to Malaysian society, needs further research. Okay, therefore generalization, okay, should not be made about the ill effect of shift work or workers and the community until the evidence, strong evidence, is published. All right, now we go to the alternative work schedule. All right, so so consultant in the UK conducted a survey in human resource issues in corporations in Europe, in the United States, and found that okay, flexible working hours system are becoming increasingly important to employees. Okay, in the attempts to balance working life, okay, and their personal life. So according to the survey, okay, conducted in the European nations, the employers, okay, will have to accept this, okay, like the new development of work arrangement, such as home and remote working, okay, must be ongoing options, okay, and offer for all employees. Trade-ins of salary for time off might also be options. Flexible work hours and work weeks are going to be norm. The maternity leave should include a permanent work from home solution if required. Sabbaticals are going to be part of the employee's compensation package. Okay, and also the fact that some employees will want to work part-time and many workers will be recruited in temporary on temporary contracts, and people get bored with their jobs. So therefore, employers must find ways to rotate jobs, add new elements to them, and just allow the employee to work in another organization for a while. All right. So basically, the um, the textbook okay provides several alternatives arrangements okay of work okay that is worthwhile for the human resource manager to consider. Okay, so we have flex time, job sharing, and working part-time. Okay, so we will go to this one by one. All right, flex time. Flex time is basically a system of working hours where the starting and stopping times are decided by the individual workers within a number of limitations set by the employer. Okay, so textbook provides figure 5.2, okay, that contains several important terminology of the flexi time. So in a flexi time working hour system, the employer must decide the organizational daily opening hours within which, okay, time the worker can make their choices as to when they wish to start and finish work. Okay, so these daily opening hours are known as the bandwidth. Yeah, bandwidth. The employer must also decide which hours of the day shall be core hours, okay? Times at which worker must be present for the purpose of having meetings, sorting out problems, and so on. The length of the core time will depend upon the need of the business. Okay, so the shorter the core hour, the more the employees will have freedom to choose their working hours. Okay, hours before and after core time and bandwidth and within the bandwidth are called flexiband. Okay? So it is in these periods that the worker exercise their choice of working hours. Okay, so Flexi time does not mean, okay, total freedom for the worker to choose his working hours as he pleases. So he is constrained by the need to work within the bandwidth and the requirement that he will be present during core hours. All right. So the textbook provides several benefits, okay, of the flexi time. Okay, so figure these benefits depicted in figure 5.3, okay, with the title Potential Benefits of Flexi Time. So the first benefit is easier recruitment. So flexi time working is perceived as being beneficial by workers. Okay, why is it? Because just having the freedom to change, okay, should they wish to, that is viewed as an advantage by workers concerned. Flexi time is especially popular with married female workers and may thus bring this group into the workforce when they would otherwise stay home. Okay, so the other benefit is higher productivity. Okay, there are numbers of reasons why productivity should be increased by the introduction of flexi time. First is because of the morale of the workers improve. Okay, by having the system whereby they are granted more freedom and their personal needs are taken into consideration. Okay, some people may want to go for a regular morning run before work. So the physical and physiological benefits that this exercise bring will help him have a better attitude at work and capable of more output. And then another worker may be very keen to get home early, okay, in the afternoons, as to keep an eye on their teenage son who returned from school by 2:30 p.m. Okay, and who, if there is no one at home, has been known to wander off the nearby shopping center or play unsuitable video games. Okay, so worker with all the individual needs can work out schedule which best suit them. Okay, so the thing is, then, having sorted out, okay, personal commitment, okay, so personal commitment and have a specific arrangement of the work. So employers, okay, employees are better able to concentrate on their work. Okay, so the disciplinary problem of being late, okay, lateness, okay, disappear under a flexi time, okay, system. So there is no need for a supervisor or other workers to be standing at the door checking on each individual. Okay, such a practice only encourages workers to be inventive and creative in looking for excuses and explanation for their tardiness. And a study conducted in 1990 also found that, okay, absenteeism was less, okay, prevalent with the introduction of flexi time problem. The next benefits, okay, stated in the textbook is the reduction in overtime payments. Okay, if a weekly or monthly settlement periods is used, workers may be encouraged to complete whatever job are in hand before leaving for home, even if this means working 9 to 10 hours on a particular day. Okay, so on the day when there is less work, the employee can use up his credits and take time off. Yeah? Okay, talking about this, yeah, about the payment. Okay, there is also a problem. Okay, need to be looked at very carefully relating to this point. Okay, if the worker are covered by Employment Act, okay, written permission from the Director General of Labor will have to be applied for before flexi time can be introduced. Okay, if the worker are unionized, okay, any attempt to remove overtime pay, okay, which is seen as a step to cut back their income, may be rejected by workers and their union. Next up, next benefit is related to better customer service. Okay, as the organization is open for longer hours, the company can offer better service to its customers. Okay, the last one, the last benefits, okay, the final benefits, number 5, and provided in the textbook, relates to fewer transport headache. Okay, one of the reason why flexi time was first introduced, okay, is because to help workers avoid commuting jams. So when workers chooses their starting and stopping time, they can take steps to avoid peak traffic hours. So the workers save time in traveling to and from work and thus have more leisure time. Save on petrol cost if they drive their own vehicles, and also avoid the discomfort of crowded public transport system. All right. So despite those benefits, several problems might be caused by flexi time. This, okay, is explained in the textbook, page 208. The first one is the feasibility. In some organization, it might not be practical to introduce flexi time for all jobs. So whenever workers are interdependent or need to work together as a team, flexi time will be unsuitable. Why? Because flexi time cannot be used in most productive or factory jobs. To have flexi time for some workers and not for others would lead to interdepartmental conflicts and jealousy. Okay, therefore, okay, it's written in the textbook here, it would be prudent to have flexi time in those organizations where all employees can benefit from the system. Okay, so for this reason, in the US and the Europe, okay, more white collar or office staff are likely to work in a flexi time system, and this cannot be applied to most production and factory jobs. All right, so the second problems caused by flexi time is the supervision and communication. Okay, flexi time system extend the organization working hours, and thus supervisions will also need to be provided for a long period. Okay, to increase the number of supervisors or to have them working on a shift system, okay, it is not an attractive option to employers. Okay, so alternative is to accept that there may be period when employees are working without the presence of supervisors. So flexi time system assume that management trusts their workers to put in a fair day work even where they are not being supervised. So communication problems can arise, especially early in the day and late in the evening when not all workers are present. So the core hours are provided to ensure that meeting can be held and any problems sorted out. Okay, so now let's look at the second alternative work scheduling. Job sharing. So what is job sharing? So job sharing, okay, or work sharing is where two people share one job and divide the salary and other benefits between them. Okay, so basically, two workers are expected to jointly manage a job, and there are not merely two independent workers who do similar job, but at the different times of the day or week. Okay, so in a work sharing system, two members of the team work as one. Okay, taking over from each other assignments or clients, okay, as and when necessary. So this type of job, this type of work arrangement, is likely to be interested in the prospect job sharing, okay, mostly professional women with small children who fear that if they stop work for any length of time to look after their children, their careers will be severely affected either through loss of seniority or because their knowledge will be quickly become outdated. Okay, so a second group who may appreciate the concept of job sharing are retirees, okay, who, for financial reasons, merely for the sake of wanting something to do, okay, would like the opportunity to continue working, but for fewer number of hours per day. Okay, so for human resource practitioner, there are a number of questions need to be resolved, okay, if work sharing, okay, is to be introduced. First, what happens if one member of the arrangement resigns, is dismissed, gets promoted, or wish to return to full-time working? Therefore, the contract must be clearly state the consequences of one person leaving. Okay, second question, okay, is about the benefits to be divided between two workers. So splitting the work days or the work week is not a problem, okay? But dividing the financial rewards such as wages and bonuses is a problem. Why? Because the Employment Act does not give the employer leeway to split, okay, other statutory benefits such as public holidays, annual leaves, entitlement to sick leave, and maternity leave. Right, so those need to be cleared out, okay, before this particular work arrangement to be introduced. Okay, now is the part-time working. Okay, what is basically part-time working? All right, so a part-time worker can be either temporary or permanent, but must be working less than normal working hours. Okay, how much less? The Employment Act defines, okay, a part-time as one whose average hours of work do not exceed 70% of the normal hours of work, okay, of a full-time worker during the same job, okay, in the same establishment. Okay, so several changes to the legislation regarding employment work. Yeah? Prior to 2010, all sections of the Employment Act applies to workers irrespective of number of hours they work. Okay, so it means that those workers earning less than 1,500 per month, okay, even though they only work for few hours per day per week, they are still entitled to full benefits, okay, laid out in the Act. So this is maybe the reason, okay, why many employers fail in the past to use this option for scheduling hours. Okay, so currently, okay, talking about this part-time, and currently there is the labor shortage, okay, the very acute, okay, form of labor shortage and dependent, and in many organizations are dependent on foreign workers. Again, the government would like to reduce the number of foreign workers, especially in the unskilled or semi-skilled worker. So it is hoped that 2010 regulations, okay, which clarify the minimum benefits due to part-time workers, will help to achieve the objective by encouraging people who are not working at the moment to join the workforce. Okay, who wants to work part-time? Okay, so various group of people interested in part-time jobs, okay, ranging from students to housewives who want to take part-time for some pocket money, to pensioners, okay, who have retired and want a way to fill their time, okay, without the stress of full-time job. Okay, they are also moonlighters. Okay, moonlighters refer to people who have a full-time job but have a need to earn extra money. Okay, so most part-time jobs are found in retail sectors, okay, especially in the fast food establishment. And then the part-times are generally those with lesser skills. They are found in jobs which require little or no training. Okay. However, there is an emerging trend of part-time professionals, okay, mostly females who have valuable skills which are needed by the employer. Rather than lose this workforce completely, the employers may be willing to compromise by establishing a part-time position for worker who, because of family commitments, is unwilling to work full and normal hours. All right. So, okay, before we end this, before we end this topic, okay, I would like to summarize, okay, several points, okay, combining points from part 1, 2, and 3. Okay, so summary of this chapter. Okay, I will read the summary for you. So wage in payment system are made up of a combination of basic pay, incentives, and benefits. Okay, a wage system must be designed to attract and retain employees, motivate them to perform well, and be simple to administer. Wage like a wages system may be time-related or piece-rated. A number of factors affect levels of pay provided to employees, including legislation, unions, the employee selection policy, employment conditions, and company profitability. Individual levels of pay are affected by seniority, increase in the cost of living, performance of the employees, and their degree of skills. Payment of wages must comply with the Employment Act, okay, the Sabah Labor Ordinance, and the Sarawak Labor Ordinance. Okay, these laws include section on frequency of wage payment, mode of payment, giving and advances, okay, and deduction from wages. Malaysia has a fixed minimum wage established by legislations. An employer cannot reduce the employee's wage without his consent. Okay, working hour system must comply with the Employment Act as well as Sabah and Sarawak labor ordinances. Non-traditional working hour system can help attract and retain workers. These systems are known as the alternatives work schedules, which include flexi time, job sharing, and part-time work. Okay, that's all for this chapter. Okay, I'll see you again in the uh, in the in other session. Bye bye.